Welcome to the Paperback Podcast, a podcast for ambitious fiction authors who are ready to go from storyteller to story seller. I'm Pagan, and I'm a copywriter and coach helping fiction authors tell and sell their story. As a best-selling author myself, I know how much work goes into creating a novel, and it deserves to be read. Believe me when I say this, your soulmate readers are out there, and together we're going to find them. How is it going? Okay, so today we're talking all about basically how long it takes to write a book. And I was actually doing this as a live stream last week, and I decided to put this in the podcast as well because I thought it was a really interesting topic. I really have some really strong feelings about NaNoWrimo, and because at the time of this being recorded it is NaNoWrimo, I really wanted to talk about why I don't do NaNoWrimo, and not that there's anything wrong with it, and not that people who find benefit from it shouldn't do it, but I wanted to chat about why I don't do it and how long it takes me to write a book and why it takes me as long as it does. And keep in mind that sometimes it doesn't take me very long at all, but it really ties into why I don't do NaNoWrimo and why I'm more focused on building long-term writing habits. So if that's something that you are interested in, something that you want to do is to build a long-term writing habit, and, you know, become a full-time author and be able to hit your deadlines, this podcast episode is really going to help you. So this is a live stream from my group again, which I thought was really useful, so I'm just transferring it into the podcast. I will be back soon, though, with some more episodes like I used to be doing and some guest episodes when we get those recorded. So keep your eyes out for that. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, make sure that you share it and let some people know. Okay, let me start again. So, today we're talking all about how to start writing a book, and before I get into it, I do want to let you know that there is mowing outside. It has actually now stopped. I was gonna wait half an hour because it was so loud, but it's actually stopped now, so maybe they're done. Hopefully they are. Hopefully they don't come back and annoy me with their mowing sounds. Okay, so hi Naomi, I'm going to give it one more minute just in case people are trying to figure out what the frick happened, because I did jump on and then it wasn't working and I didn't know what was going on, so I had to restart. Yeah, but apart from that, we are all good, and we're going to talk today all about why it takes so long to write a book. We're going to talk about whether you should do NaNoWrimo, and we're going to talk about why some books take longer than others. So if you are keen for that, let me know below. I'm going to get started. So basically, I want to talk about why it takes you so long to write a book, which I'm sure everyone, if you've written a book before, if you've tried to write a book before, sometimes it would take ages. And Naomi says that she could see me in the other video, so I was live. Oh my gosh, that is so weird, because it just was not showing up on my screen and it was telling me I wasn't live, and I was like, why? And that was just the most confusing thing, but anyway, we're here now. So I have obviously written a couple of books. One of them, Ryan Rupert, took me a week, which is a very short amount of time. Please note that that's just the writing of it, the first draft. It wasn't the editing, it wasn't the revisions. That took a lot longer, but the actual getting the words down, which is kind of what I'm getting at here, how long does that take? That one took me a week, right? I've had other books that have taken me years and years just to get the right first draft down, because I've gone through so many drafts and they haven't been the right draft. I've also had books that have taken me a year, and I've had different processes for all of these books. So let me talk about why it takes so long to do all these different kinds of books, right? So for Ryan Rupert, the really clear thing about Ryan Rupert is that I was very much inspired and I was very clear on what that book was going to be. What actually happened was I was on holiday for a week, the week before I wrote it, and I wasn't having the best time, which is totally okay. I just get like that when I'm away from home. But I was on this island with people I didn't necessarily want to be with, and having to go through activities that I didn't necessarily want to go through, and just not really having the best time, right? And I kind of thought to myself, what would make this interesting? And I'm also the kind of person who likes to vent about my experiences, and that made it really easy to turn that into plot points for a novel. So I started to draw inspiration from the things going on in my life, the things happening around me, the characters and people around me, and things like that. And just thinking, you know, what would make this a really interesting story, even though that wouldn't be true. And it came together as a book, and I was like, I'm going to go home and write this book. And then I couldn't wait to get home and write this book because I couldn't actually write it while I was there. So I finally got home, went straight to my computer, started writing, and within a week I was done because I had to get it all out, right? I had all these ideas and emotions and just everything that just went straight onto the page so smoothly. So that is why the first book took me a week. And, you know, I had perfect clarity on what that book was going to be, where it was going, what was going to happen. Like, that's why it was so easy, right? But the other factor is that it's also because it was a contemporary romance. And generally, those are pretty easy to write, especially because we experience a lot of that stuff in everyday life, unless you don't, but I feel like we all do. So when it comes to writing things like fantasy, which is why that one took me years, is because you have to think of things that don't happen to you, right? It's a lot more complex to write a story that you don't go through yourself, right? You can definitely write about the experiences that you go through yourself, but if you're making things up from scratch and you have to really think about how would this happen, and you have to do the research and you have to come up with the ideas, that becomes a lot harder, right? So that is one factor of why it takes longer to write other books, is because it has a lot more concentration involved. It has a lot more focus, and you have to be creative. And if you're not creative and you don't feel like being creative, you tend to procrastinate, right? So that is a reason why it can take longer to write a book. Now, another one is I wrote a book on Wattpad, which I sort of challenged myself to put out a chapter every week or every second week, something like that. It was a while ago now. But it took me a year to write the whole thing. And I did it that way, where I would put out a chapter every second week or every week. And basically that meant that I had to get focused once a week and sit down and write it. And that was a challenge, because sometimes it was easy. Sometimes I would be really into it and I'd be able to write a few chapters in advance. And then other times I'd be struggling to keep up because it just felt like I was stuck. I didn't know where it was going to go next. And again, that's the same thing. If you don't know where your story is going, if you don't have complete clarity with your story, it's going to be a lot more difficult to write your book. Now, I know that we all go through this, but there are ways to get clear on your book in the beginning. There are ways to generate story ideas, to get inspired and keep yourself inspired, right? And that's why I don't do NaNoWrimo, because I feel like it's totally fine to do NaNoWrimo. I feel like for some people it's great because it can keep them accountable, it can keep them sort of motivated and inspired, and having everyone doing it at once can sort of motivate them to sit down and do it as well and get their book finished and, you know, actually take those steps. So for some people it's great, right? For me, it doesn't work because I just am not the kind of person who, if I'm not truly into a book idea, I will not be able to sit down and just get it out. I really need the time to get clear on my story idea, right? So that's one thing. The other one is that I don't like that it puts pressure on yourself to get a book done in a month. I really feel like that a book is going to take as long as it takes, and it really is going to depend on you along the way in the process. And if you're forcing yourself to put stuff down that, you know, is not ready to come out, it's not going to be the best it can be, that's going to impact your do a lot of work later on to fix that up when it could have come out flowing like, you know, the way creativity is meant to flow, you know. So that's another reason why I don't like it. Another thing is that it doesn't let you like have the time and build the habits that you need to write, right? And I feel like everyone has their own writing process, everyone has things that work for them. So I'm not saying this is wrong, but in my experience as someone who is published, as someone who does write regularly, and someone who has to meet deadlines, I can't be waiting a whole year to knock out my book, you know, like I have to be writing all the time because otherwise I don't hit my deadlines. I've got so many of them in a year that I have to finish my book by and then get the editing done by. So that method really doesn't work for me. And it's further enhanced by the fact that, let me ask you a question here, and I'm sure you'll get it, is like, if you had like deadlines like me right now, where I have to have a book out by December, March and June, in the next 9 coming months. If you had to knock out a book, like you hadn't started any of these books yet and you had to knock it out by these deadlines, would you be able to nano every second month of the year to get these books done? Would that be possible? Or does Nano work because it's like this one-time thing that you do once a year and then you come drained and then you have to work on the book for the rest of the year, right? Let me know what your thoughts are around that, because I feel like if some of you had to Nano once a month, every couple of months, it would just exhaust you. And that is why you really need to be able to build that consistent writing habit. And it doesn't mean you have to write every day, but it does mean you have to find something that works for you, right? And I really feel like that's important if you want to be a full-time writer and if you want to work with other people in the process. Again, if you want to be self-published, you can set your own deadlines, you can have that flexibility, that's totally fine. But if you're more of leaning towards traditionally published, you're not going to have that, not the flexibility, but like you're not going to have that luxury, I guess, to sort of just be like, oh, well, I'll just write it in December when everyone else is writing it. And that's a really big thing. So that's kind of my thought process on writing books and how I do it and why I do it that way, and where you might be becoming tripped up. Maybe you're procrastinating, maybe you're finding it really difficult to get through some sections of your story, maybe you're not like 100% clear on it. Even if you're a pantser and you're sort of doing it as you go, you should still have a bit of clarity on where you're going with it, because I actually pantsed Ryan Rupert and I still got it done in a week. I didn't go and plan it all out first. I was like, this is what's going to happen and I'm going to see where it takes me, but I still had an idea of these are the characters, this is what they're going to end up doing, this is where the story's set, So I really feel like that's in my opinion and my experience what it's been like to be a writer for me. Let me go through the comments for a bit. So, Naomi says that NaNoWrimo works for those reasons of that it keeps her accountable, but it takes a lot of planning first. That's exactly right. And yeah, like I feel like if you are someone who is a planner, that could be a better process for you. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with doing Nano, but I really want you to think about what you want to do in the future, what your long-term goals are when it comes to being a writer and whether that's a sustainable method. Because if not, it might be time to reevaluate, how you go about your writing, because now is the time to set those habits. Naomi says, I write every day, but I do wish I had the discipline to write as much as during NaNoWrimo every other month. That's another really good point. And again, I feel like a lot of factors come into account here where everyone's writing at the same time and it's like this big competition and you've got that kind of drive backing you. So I get why it can be harder to do it every other month of the year. But then again, I feel like you should also be writing for yourself. You should take the pressure off yourself and do it because you genuinely want to do it. That's when the best stories come out. If you feel like you genuinely want to write a book, if you have a genuine idea that excites you, and when you do have that, writing doesn't even become a problem, because like I said with Ryan Rupert, the ideas flowed so naturally because I was actually excited to write it. Even with Lanterns in the Sky, I actually wrote all 4 books in that series in the first year that I came up with the idea, the first drafts for them, right? So all 4 books, one after the other. It was in 2014. That's before I went and rewrote Lanterns in the Sky another 18 times after that. That's when I tried really hard to get it published. But in that first year, I did have all 4 books down. And again, it was kind of like the ideas came to me really naturally and I was excited to write it, genuinely wanted to write it, so they just came out, It was exactly the same thing. And then it became harder when I tried to make the plot a bit better and restructure it. So yes, it can get difficult at times, but the getting it down, that idea, should not be a difficult process at all. Sandy says, how do you motivate yourself to write every day when you already work full time? I'm in the planning stage of an idea I had. So that is it's something that you'll have to figure out for yourself, but I can give you some tips. So for me, when I was writing back at these times, I was still in high school. So I was doing high school full time and I had a part-time job on top of that. But then I would come home and I would have all the free time I needed to write. So that was a bit different. When I got into the workforce, however, that did change, because actually working and not being at school was a bit more draining, right? And I had unpredictable hours. I was working casual in a coffee shop, and that did make it difficult. But in that year, because I was really passionate about writing, I also managed to publish my book that year. I managed to study 2 creative writing degrees and still write books. So it is doable. The key is to figure out when you are most inspired to write. Now, the good thing about working those daytime hours is that I still was able to write in the evenings, and I got really inspired after 9 p.m. And I'd also set that habit in my high school years, because I would come home, I would chill for a bit, and then when it came to 9 p.m. I would write my books, and that was my writing time. That's when I felt most inspired, and my body knew that was my writing time. So when I came home from work, it was still able to kick in at that time, you know. I was able to sit down after 9 p.m. and be like, this is my writing time, this is what I feel like writing. So setting a habit is a really good way to remind your body, this is writing time, this is when we get inspired. And even like keeping yourself in that mood of motivation. So whatever inspires you to get ideas, whether it's listening to music, which works really well for me, or going for a walk, or you know, it might be doing some yoga or meditation, it could be playing video games, whatever gets you excited to create your own stories. You should do that before you intend to sit down and write, because it's going to help put you in that mood, right? So I hope that helps. Let me know your thoughts on that. Naomi says, I'm excited about the book I'm writing now. Now, if I set a low, it would probably be more realistic for me. Yeah, I feel like sometimes when we do Nano, even though it's really great for keeping us accountable, it does sort of force us to get it out fast and to not think things through and to just put down whatever comes to us, which is not what we always want, because the best ideas come when they're meant to come, right? And to give you an idea, I was really excited to write the second book in Lanterns in the Sky series, and I had like an idea of where that was going as well. I did get stuck in the middle for a little bit because I wasn't clear on where it needed to go or how it needed to play out, and I was stuck for quite a few months on that. And I feel like if I had forced it at the time, it wouldn't have come out the way it did, and it wouldn't have come out the best way it could, because I would have been like, okay, I've got to get something down, how about we do this, and it wouldn't have fit. I really needed time to think about why it needed to play out that way and what the characters were meant to do and all that kind of stuff, right? That's why I feel like you got to trust the process. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying there. Sandy says, thank you and good for you. Yes, work is much harder than school. I'm in Rebecca's Patreon group, so my goal is to work with her in the evenings after I get done with work. I think that's a fantastic idea, because Rebecca is very consistent. And I feel like that'll be accountable. Okay, so feel free to drop any more questions you have as we go, but I do want to talk about how Storyteller Academy helps you with these problems, right? And I do want to let you know as well that the doors are closing next week in about, let me check how many days. Yeah, in about 7 days they will close. So this is everyone's last chance to get in on this before next year, and I don't know when I'm going to open them next year yet. So if you guys want to get in now, then you got to take action now. So basically, you know, like I talked about, having an idea for a book, being able to set those habits, being able to motivate yourself and generate ideas are all going to come in really handy to help keep that flow going. I know that when you get writer's block, if you break the flow, that's what's going to make it really difficult to get back into writing again. And I know that sometimes we need the space and we need the break, but if we let it drag out for months and months and months, it's just going to be so hard to sit down again and be like, what was I even writing? You know, I need to go back and reread all the chapters, and then, oh, I found all these errors and now I don't feel like it's good enough, and it creates all these problems, right? So it's really the best if you can get as much down in one hit as possible in a consistent stream, whether it takes you 3 months to do that, just to get it down, you know? And I feel like Storyteller Academy is really great for setting up 2 modules dedicated to just setting that up in the beginning, to making sure that you have a writing routine that works for your schedule in place, to making sure that you have that inspiration sort of trigger, and to make sure that you have complete clarity on what you actually want to write, you know, and it doesn't have to be the whole story planned out. It's just the stuff that gets you started and gets you writing, the really your plot and your characters and just really basic stuff about them. And yeah, like just other little things like that. Those are the 2 modules in the beginning, and they're fantastic for that. And then when it comes to writing all the other stuff, you know, if you get stuck along the way, there's also some great stuff in there to help you write your book, to help you troubleshoot when you get stuck and figure out what's actually keeping you stuck. Like, what are you feeling about your book that is making you not want to write, and to figure out how to fix it. And I will tell you that in that module, there's actually 7 different things that could be going wrong that I have gone through with the module for you guys. So that is really helpful as well. Now, like I said, the doors are closing next week, and that is like I feel like you guys, like, it's going to be really helpful for you if you have been struggling with your writing, if you haven't even finished a book yet. I know that you can do it. It's just that you might need the extra support. And I really feel like you'll get that in Storyteller Academy. You'll get the support from me, you'll get the support from the group, and it's going to be amazing. And what I know it will do for you is that you'll be able to identify, like, patterns around your writing that are keeping you stuck time and time again. It will help you break them and sort of like be able to move past them. It's also going to help you to write your book with complete ease and clarity, to get started and finish it if you've never finished it before. I know that you will get to the end using the process I've set out for you. It's also going to help you to create a daily or weekly word count goal that you can hit consistently, because it's not like forcing you to write any one way, but it does help you take a look at what you can and can't do in your current life, and to make sure that you can fit in writing time and prioritize certain things. And you get a whole worksheet to help you with that. And then just other things like clarity on genre and, you know, your age group, and whether it's going to be a series or a standalone. All those different things that are going to help you figure out, okay, this is the kind of book that I'm writing. And it's going to be really great to help you get clarity on that too. So I really wanted to let you know that, you know, the doors are closing next week, and I wanted to let you know that Storyteller Academy will help you solve these problems if this is something that you struggle with. But that's basically it for today's video. So if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to drop them below. If you're watching the replay, feel free to drop questions as well, because I will come back and answer them. And if you guys did want more information about Storyteller Academy, please don't hesitate to reach out, because I don't want you to miss out. And what I will do is just drop the link in the comments as well for anyone interested, just in case. And the other thing is that I didn't do a giveaway this week, but I will be doing one next time. So make sure you catch my next live stream. I'm trying to do them every second week. You may have noticed I've been pretty consistent with that. So I'm pretty sure there will be one by the next 2 weeks from now. But yeah, that's all for today's video. Let me know if you have any other questions, or if you have anything you want to add, like in regards to what we talked about today. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, because I know that everyone's different, and I know that the more about it, the more benefit everyone gets. But apart from that, that's all for today. I hope I'll see you guys next time, and hope you all have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll see you later. That's all I have for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review, or if you found this specific episode helpful, please share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it too. And don't forget that I'll be back 2 weeks from now with another episode of the Paperback Podcast.